was deemed to be an abominable crime, and it's a crime of unnatural crime. What is the difference of thinking in the question about consenting adults, where in the case of incest, two consenting adults in the case of incest, what is the difference in the Constitution that would make them make the one unconstitutional? And what's the difference in the principle why, in the case of incest, the consenting adult is not struck of the court because of the Constitution? I just want to get that clarification to see what is the difference in the thinking in that. Okay?
Okay, good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Off my head, in respect of the section on incest, the caller is comparing incest to burglary. But when a careful analysis is done of the case, the learned justice indicated that you have to consider the public interest, health grounds. Scientists speak to where there is sexual intercourse and a child comes out of that intercourse between relatives, the health issues that follow. So we always have to, the law deals with issues in society, and the law also looks at public interest. So comparing incest to burglary, I would say, is not a fair comparison, because the court would have to consider other things, as I said, the health issues that may arise in cases of incest.
I want to concur with you in that regard. If you were to continue, and for the listeners, we will be taking calls in a while, and the number to call is 448-3284 or 1-800-327. But in the meantime, let us continue as you're going through section 14.
Yes, we were going the way that the declaration that was made in respect of section 14 is simple. It's not a section where you have section 14 completely repelled from the legislation. Section 14 remains in the Sexual Offences Act. It's just that we have an exception, the exception being that consenting adults can engage in their acts.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So do you want to migrate now to burglary?
Yes. I must say, before we go into burglary, the case, this hotly debated case, said that we're making it look as if it's in the context of Dominica only. But when I reviewed the case, I noted that we've had case law coming from the U.S. Case law coming from the U.S. was referred to in respect of burglary from Botswana. It's not only regionally that this case dealt with this issue. It looked at cases coming from all over the world. So it's now an international issue, legal issue, not only regional. And the court followed precedent. And this is the stance that is being taken throughout the world right now in respect of burglary. Consenting adults can engage in acts of burglary. But we have the victims, where somebody does not consent, and somebody not consenting would mean that you make a complaint to the police investigate, a charge can be brought before the court. Where you have a minor, minors cannot consent in law under the age of 16, that is considered a minor, cannot consent to such act. A minor cannot consent to sexual intercourse, to acts of indecent assault, to gross indecency. So when we have the minor bringing a complaint, you'd have the mother, the father, a welfare officer, a family member with that minor bringing a complaint to the police, and the police investigating that complaint. We have a victim, and this victim is the one that would give evidence of the act of what happened in court. So in respect of burglary, it's not where, as we're saying, I noted that on the media, it's burglary is legalized. We have these outward statements. No, it is burglary has been declared to be legal. It has been decriminalized to the very small extent that it is legal between consenting adults.
Yeah. I want to say for that, speaking within the context of the foundations of our constitution and the way historically our criminal law has evolved, it has always taken into consideration the whole issue of morality, etc. And that's an issue a number of people may have an issue with. People would not subscribe to the whole lifestyle. And people like myself who don't subscribe to that lifestyle. But we are talking about an issue fundamentally of law and a ruling that has become precedent and you're almost obligated to follow. So I wanted us to make that differentiation, to actually make that distinction. And not to say that, I mean, the state is in any way supporting that measure. The fact is, the matter is, the state, for matter of fact, did in fact retain counsel to advise, and was, of course, the intention was to fight this measure based on the issue of the exception that we thought was made within the Constitution on the issue of morality. But of course, the court has ruled, and I believe that as a democratic society, we have to may not like it. Some of us who don't subscribe to that lifestyle, many of us don't, including myself, but you're talking about the issue of legality.
And we're talking about the issue of legality within the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. And I support, Mr. Minister, what you say, that a lot of individuals in society, from statements made, may not subscribe, but at the end of the day, we have our churches we attend. We still follow the doctrine coming from whatever religious denomination. It does not, even this ruling does not prevent us from following the doctrine of our religious denomination. Yeah. It's just that certain individuals that may not follow our religious denomination can engage in their acts in private. Another thing in respect of the charge of burglary, the burglary, I must emphasize that burglary can now be done between consenting adults. Section 16 prevented the act of burglary between male and female. But right now, so it's not only in respect of burglary between males, it also allows for burglary between male and female individuals in the private of their homes. Consenting, that is. And that is a major issue. Consent. It does not, at this stage, it does not, what the court has declared does not prevent the police or the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions from prosecuting an individual who has been burgled, who has not consented, an adult. You're
a real prosecutor, you're saying that thing so boldly there. Yes. But on the issue of, a number of people have called me and have spoken with me, and the issue of soliciting in the public, and I'm not sure if you want to speak to that, if you want to expound on that, but in the context of the discussion that we're having tonight.
Soliciting in the public, I would say it's prohibited. Though certain concessions, I call them little concessions, have been made in the ruling, it's still soliciting in the public is still prohibited based on the gross indecency section, because the gross indecency section specifically indicates that you have to do it in private. Also, acts of indecency too being done in the public, individuals can still be prosecuted in respect of these acts. When we speak too of soliciting in the public, you may think, sometimes I think of what struck me when this ruling came out, of individuals openly showing their affection, that is males showing, male and male showing their affection in public. Most times these things are to dim what someone does in public is determined by the facts and circumstances, and also in the particular forum for gross indecency. So it does not prohibit us from prosecuting, we just have to look at the facts and circumstances.
I'd like you just to give that for some further light. You said it there, but I think we need to just expound on it a little more so the ordinary man can understand.
The acts of soliciting, of indecency in the public, gross indecency, usually to determine these types of offenses, in law, in prosecution, we always say it's dependent on the facts and circumstances what is done. A peck on the cheek is not grossly indecent. But gratification in public, doing certain sexual acts in public would fall under gross indecency. So the public looking at it from the point of view that, okay, buggery has been legalized, so that this means that, the males can do whatever they want in public. No, this is not the interpretation that ought to be given of the case and of the declarations made in the case.
Yes. Okay. Now we can take some calls now if you so wish. We have 30 more minutes to go. And so far, our guests are doing a fantastic job. I want to commend you again for the manner in which you have been able to ventilate those issues there. Hopefully that can bring out just a next perspective to the public that will allow for better understanding of the issues there. And the numbers to call again is, we have someone on. Let's see whether we can get a call. Good evening, you're live.
Hello, good evening.
Good night, sir.
How are you all doing?
I'm very fine.
It's global warming. No, my brother, the problem is, even if people have their thing in their domain on their own home, private home, I don't believe it would right for you to have children in this house and having this activity among the children, whether it is your home or not, or your private area. I don't believe like you go, let's say you go in a bar and you're loving and kissing up somebody, or a man or a woman in a bar, or even on your transport in the public domain. I don't believe that should be an issue on the world that we should focus on, or mankind should focus on. I believe a man was made for a woman, and it is a bad precedent even to Ra, such sun god. And he did not create us to do that. It's rather a man have 2 wives, 3 wives if you have a large nature appetite. I believe, what about a wife and her husband is a homosexual? Can she take him to court for violating her marriage rights? We have to look at many things. What about the children who learn that and come to school and doing the same thing among other children, contaminating other children? I believe if we say we are a Christian country and the world is involved in religion, I don't believe it is right. And things like that, we should have a referendum. Instead, somebody's taking decisions for the people. But this is a serious matter. It is not like a Tom and Jerry, you cannot catch me. And a referendum, no one should make that, not even a judge, not a magistrate, nobody. This is our country. We vote for a government to govern this country in a right way, in a way that Allah Himself will bless us in all our endeavors and make our country be fruitful. It is condemned by Allah. It's supposed to be condemned by men. And it's rather a man have more than one wife providing he can maintain them. And I just believe it is totally wrong in the sight of Allah, in the sight of Ra himself, the creator, sun God. And it is not a good thing. There are many other things that we believe that we could do to alleviate the substantial growth of our country and our spiritual growth. It is not nice, and we must not follow other countries, monopoly countries. We know where they came from. As black people, it is not good. In the Middle East, they behead these people. So many things. I'm not saying we should do that here. But the fact is, we as a people, as a government, we put to govern our country. Things like that, let us have a referendum. And if we don't want it, we'll just totally ban it in our country. Not at home, not at school, not at play, in the name of Allah. Assalamualaikum Islam. Bye-bye.
Thank you, caller. Very interesting call, but I'd just like to emphasize that, as you may have heard just now from the Director of Public Prosecutions, we had significantly overhaul our Sexual Offences Act. And this the sections as they relate to gross indecency and buggery were on the books. And fundamentally maybe actually echoed the same sentiments that you just referenced. But the court has struck it down certain elements of that insofar as it relates to two male consenting adult within the domain of the privacy.
Male to adults.
Two adults.
Male, female.
I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying that he was making reference specifically to males doing that in the presence of children. But of course, as I said earlier on, and with respect to buggery on the books now, the act could have been done between two adults, male and female. You see? So it's almost like a gender neutral offense. But of course, people always took it to mean that it was actually between two males. You see? So I understand what you're saying, but as a responsible government or laws will fashion in the spirit of what you're saying now. But we have to have an appreciation of the separation of powers. The court has looked at it vis-a-vis the Constitution and has decided that certain elements of the offences should go. I may not agree with it, but of course many do not agree with it. But that's the ruling of the court. And as a democratic society, we have to comply with the ruling of the court, even if we do not like it. And Ms. Dairampi, may you want to us further?
Mr. Minister, also, when we look at our Sexual Offences Act, we must also consider that the sentences...
If you just... Good evening.
Hello, good night, Mr. Blackmore.
Good night, Your Excellency.
Yes, good night, Miss Dairampi.
Yes.
Good night.
Your good friend.
Yes. There is a lot of discussion that going in accordance with the court decision with the buggery law. And all of us, we are there listening, and we are seeing what's going on. But my biggest problem with this is what some of the talk show hosts, he does not listen, he does not understand, and some people, all what you hear them saying that Roosevelt Skerrit and the Prime Minister of Dominica legalized buggery. And last night I had a problem with some of them. The court take a decision. The government of Dominica, Mr. Blackmore, which you have never go to parliament and say they legalize buggery. And I would like to tell a lot of them, some of the talk show hosts, when you hear people saying that the government of Dominica legalized buggery, educate the people. Tell them that the people have their rights. They go to court. It's not Roosevelt Skerrit, it's not the Prime Minister of Dominica, not the government of Dominica that go in parliament and said that they are legalizing buggery. The court said that, and I believe a lot of us in Dominica, we do not like that. And all we have to understand that if we go back to Romans chapter 1, when people give themselves unto violent affection, man with man, woman with woman, they're making a shame of themselves, and they will get it. And I would like to encourage a lot of Dominican, even though the law passed, my brother, people have their own will, they have what they have, not to put all yourself with that. Go and get a woman, you man, go and get a woman, marry the woman. You woman, get a man and marry the woman, not to give all yourself, because God will watch us. Let me tell you, the hurricane season coming. And not to surprise that God destroyed Dominica for that reason. If, as he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, because God do not like that, my brother. And any man, and I like the step that Pastor Rodney, I like the step by Peter Augustine, I like the step that the Evangelical Association take. And we are not going and married no man with man. We are not going to marry no woman, and we're going and stand up. And the government of Dominica, you, Mr. Blackmore, the Minister of Justice, have to stand up and tell them we're not accepting those kind of things in our country. The law is the law. I mean, those people, they fight for their rights. We cannot tell them nothing. They go to court, the court give a decision. You cannot come and tell me, and a lot of those journalists, and I listening to them, people telling them, hey, Roosevelt Skerrit legalized Bogara. And a lot of them saying, yes, Roosevelt Skerrit is the same like that. Brother, not to do those things, my brother. God will curse us, my brother. Them people go to court, they win their case, and the court have a right to look at it as Antigua look at it, as Barbados look at it, as many other countries look at it. Not to come and put the blame on Roosevelt Skerrit and say Roosevelt Skerrit, and I blaming fellas like them, and I'm not calling their name. When people on their talk show saying it's government, it's Roosevelt Skerrit that legalized this matter, and they helping those people, my brother. Be right, my brother, Dominican, not to go and give man bad name and say is man that do that, when we know if the government of Dominica go to parliament and legalize this shame and this hatred that God do not like. God said in the book of Genesis, when God saw what man was doing, man with man, woman with woman, he destroyed them. The Bible tells you that the smell of their sin came into the nose of God, and God said, no, you crazy man. God make man for woman. What is better that when a man have the vagina of a woman, and a woman have the penis of a man, then you tell me you want to go to the bottom of man, you want to go to what man you sucking woman and do
okay, let us try to maintain the decency on the program. We can do that no more.
And any man that believe because they hear that they come in on the street and do that, we will stone them, we'll destroy them, just like other countries doing. And no man in Dominica.
Okay, Kokom, are you listening? Mr. Little, are you listening? Hello.
Good night, Mr. Blackmore.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Mr. Mother Rample, good night.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, may the grace of the Lord be with you.
Thank you. And
Okay.
you too.
Amen, amen.
Okay. I think anyone who want to actually insinuate that this government or the Prime Minister has legalized burglary certainly is being malicious and being malicious for a purpose. Mm-hmm. And as I said before, the act of burglary was prohibited prior to this ruling, irrespective as to whether you consenting adults or not, whether it was an act between a male and male or female and male. So a certain segment of that of that section, as you heard from the most distinguished practitioners here tonight, has been struck out, both insofar as it relates to 16 and 14. But burglary in its totality has not been decriminalized. Let us just emphasize that again. So charges can still be brought against someone for one, violating a minor, for violating an adult who did not consent. Okay, so charges of burglary can still be preferred against people. Okay, so let us emphasize that. And I want to agree with you that the government has never gone to court, you understand, to legalize any such act. The court has, to Parliament, sorry, the court has ruled against what is on the books. Let us make that fundamentally clear. And we have to also make a distinction, maybe you may want to address that, on the issue of same-sex marriage. This is not about same-sex marriage, okay? So that is something that we have to ventilate properly to the public and to dispel any deliberate misinformation or that has been put out there. Shema, you want to continue there, please?
Yes, I just wanted to remind members of the public of the seriousness of these offenses, gross indecency and burglary. Both these offenses are indictable, and the sentences attached to them. There was no discussion, no concession in respect of the sentences. Burglary against a minor is 25 years imprisonment. Burglary committed against a non-consenting adult is 10 years imprisonment.
If you want to just take a deep breath there for a while, Miss Darampo. Good evening. Hello, you're live. Good night.
Good night, Minister.
Good evening.
I joined the program late, but I think I got a little of what you're speaking about. Sorry.
Thank you.
Just that this afternoon, I was challenged by one of my parishioners, who we always speak together. But he keep telling me that my Prime Minister legalized burglary. I told him in my presence that I disagree completely about that. He asked me what's my views on that. So I told him, as far as I know, I am a Christian in the Catholic faith, and the Catholic faith condemn that completely. I go with my faith. I condemn it completely.
Challenges were brought against and they were interested parties, inclusive of the churches.
You're right.
And then you may have heard from the acting Soldier there. You may have heard from the acting permanent secretary, and and then any such assertions being made, as I've said before, let me just reiterate for the purpose of emphasis, is malicious. Because the state actually retained special counsel in that regard. There were 4 previous rulings in countries in the Caribbean with similar laws, which has been, of course, court rulings. You have precedents being emerged, have emerged. So you have responsibility. The courts normally go with those rulings. That notwithstanding, of course, we put on a fight, and as a consequence. The act of burglary has not been taken off of the book in totality. So the notion that, as we said before, that the burglary in its totality has been decriminalized is fundamentally misplaced. Okay? And if you're listening to the free practitioners here tonight, who have spoken so eloquently here tonight, there should be no confusion in what the order is all about, insofar as what you have just spoken about tonight. So just people who come to you and with those kind of sentiments, just pray for them a little more, because they need help.
And Mr. Minister, to add to what you're saying, if this gentleman, he should not listen to people, because let's take the genesis of all this before this case even came about. Parliament, which is your government, enacts laws. There was this law on the books enacted by Parliament that burglary, male or female, is illegal.
Yep.
So this is what the government placed on the books. Burglary is illegal. Now you have a challenge to this. So it was there before, placed there by the government. So this postulation that the government legalized burglary, it's false from the genesis of the enactment of the law. So right now you have people you have claimants who came to say, listen, the government has burglary on the books, and this is not right to me, and I need to challenge it on various aspects. And the court just qualified that burglary is now decriminalized when it's in the privacy of your home.
But you have to go further. With 2 adults,
consenting adults
who are consenting.
Right, 2 consenting adults. So.
Mr. Minister, I want to take this opportunity to inform the members of the public that even though there are headlines currently saying burglary ban, that is a misrepresentation of the judgment.
Totally.
The ban on burglary has not been lifted. The ruling qualifies the application of the law.
Correct.
In other words, the Buggery law is still on the books, but as it relates to two consenting adults in the privacy of their homes or in the privacy of anywhere they are, they will not be prosecuted for a criminal offense of buggery or gross indecency. So it is an inaccurate headline, wherever it is, for it to be said that buggery has been banned or the buggery ban has been lifted.
And we also have to be careful that we don't allow these headlines to create a state of hate. So let us be responsible in what we put out in the public as well.
And to say further to what you to further qualify what you just said, Acting PS, Dominica maybe is one of the countries within the sub-region with the most sweeping comprehensive sexual offences act. You can recall that we had made some serious amendments to that act to broaden the scope of various sections, and you hit earlier on the whole issue of gross indecency is one of those where we actually incorporated a broader definition with the express purpose of capturing more activities. And so I believe what we have to do, as I've said before, although we live in a democracy, people who are so qualified in particular fields, especially as it refers to law, and who have an understanding of the judgment, have a responsibility, because a lawyer is an officer of the court within the precinct and also the precinct of the court. And you have other people who are qualified in particular disciplines who may be able to assist the public to better digest a particular issue that may be complex, to go out there and be objective and to disaggregate the topic and to extract the politics and the sensation from that topic. And that's what's happening right now. You have politics and you have people who want the papers to sell and the story to sell. And I went to buy something last night and I saw headlines, buggery. I don't want to say more. I don't want to say more. So I believe, again, and it's President Obama who said one of the wonderful things about democracy is that even the ignorant is allowed to speak. But that's something that we have to actually learn to live with. But we're just 5 minutes more on this very interesting program, and as we're about to wind up, anybody want to call before you wind up, you can do so. And do you have any?
I will just
more
continue by saying the sentences for gross indecency, for between non-consenting adults, the sentence is that of 12 years, and for an act of gross indecency committed against a child, the person doing it for the first time will get this. They can get up to 14 years imprisonment. And if the person commits another offense of that nature thereafter, they can get up to 20 years imprisonment. So as you were saying, Mr. Minister, that just highlights the legislature having the importance that has been placed in respect of these type of offenses. And there are lots more offenses under the Sexual Offences Act. I heard a caller asked in respect of individuals committing such acts in the presence of minors. This is covered in the Act.
Right.
We have the section of gross indecency, indecent assault. We also have the section, for example, I know that the public was talking about soliciting minors into that type of lifestyle. And we have grooming under the legislation. Yes, so we have to always remember that... and
maybe you want to explain what it is, because grooming is, because you can use a phone and send messages to somebody who's a minor, and then you can actually get yourself into serious
charged
problem.
for an offense,
Right.
and you can be indicted
Right.
for grooming because it's an indictable offense.
But do you want to just amplify it a little more? So
Okay, grooming is an offense where you are initiating contact with a minor to do an act of indecency, sexual intercourse, indecent assault, burglary, any one of the offenses under the Sexual Offences Act. And the offense committed against a minor, grooming, you can get a sentence up to 20 years imprisonment, and it's prosecuted by indictment. It's done in the High Court. It was not in our 1998 Sexual Offences Act did not have this offense.
Okay. As we go back to the sentences on both sections, I also wanted to qualify that when you have someone who has committed a similar crime more than once, so that in itself would impact on the sentence
Yes,
itself. So I wanted to do this.
Yes, in respect of gross indecency, as I said, an individual who commits the offense for the first time can get the maximum penalty of 14 years. But if the person commits this offense another time, they can get a maximum sentence of 20 years. So if it's for being a repeat offender, you are punished daily.
Yeah. And I want you also, for those who may be saying what my good friend Kokom just said, and the acting permanent secretary made reference to that. What is currently in the books in terms of, insofar as burglary is concerned, and in terms of the sentencing and the serious nature in which the offenses, and then also some of the expressions you have heard here tonight. We also need to take into consideration that the Sexual Offences Act in itself more or less mirrors the kind of Christian values that we speak of and what we want to preserve. But so that's what the government has done. Do you get my point? And that's what we have on the books. It is the court who is ruling, not the cabinet going to parliament and to shut it down.
And also our legislation also covers acts of indecency between a woman and a girl.
Okay, you're right. I want us to also
Yes,
amplify
so
that.
Don't forget this part of the legislation.
Okay. Good evening. We missed the caller. Sorry about that. The caller. Hello. Sorry about that. Yeah. Continue, please, Miss Diane Ploy. I must say, Miss Riss. Sorry about that.
Yes. So in respect of burglary, as I said, it's 25 years the penalty for burglary against a minor. I prosecuted a burglary matter 2 sessions ago, and the individual got 18 years imprisonment. The act was committed against a minor. So our courts take these matters seriously.
Yeah, but I would like you to also make a reference, because some of the callers who are calling and expressing concerns from the Christian community. As I've said, so far, we ensured, like all other countries in the Caribbean, did within the laws, is to more or less fashion this Christian value in the laws. And so it was immaterial before that ruling whether you're able to consent to have been involved in the act of burglary.
Yes, it was.
It was immaterial whether it was being done by a man and a woman or a man and a man. You get my point?
The act was gender neutral.
Right, I'm saying.
Yes.
So that is how far we went, when we went to Parliament to ensure that was done. Yes. So the state definitely haven't taken that step, which could have been perceived by many to be far-reaching. Okay, cannot now be blamed for a ruling coming out from a court.
And we ought not to be blamed for changes in the law. The law is evolving. Society has to also look at the fact that we all have our religious denominations, we have our personal beliefs, but an aspect of law is that it always changes.
We have a call on the line there, so let us get this call before we leave. Good evening. Hello, good night. You're live.
Yes, good evening. I call to say that homosexual is extremely incorrect. No man should interfere with a man. No woman should interfere with a woman. I was reading the book of Matthew chapter 19 verse 4, where it is said that God created in the beginning, God created male and female. And it continues by saying, a man should leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. And these two will become twins. But they will be no more twins, they will become one. So I do not know why people with their dirty mind and thinking want to encourage others to live evil practices in our country. Good evening.
Yes, good night, sir. Do you want to respond to that?
I wish to respond. I think also that the judge rightfully started this judgment by saying that this judgment does not relate to any choices or lifestyle. So I think we do not, as I said before, want to create a society of hate against others, because if we are truly Christian based, we shall not cast the first stone at all. So we have to look at it as a legislative perspective as to the rights of one individual as opposed to another, and let us go on that premise. We can agree to disagree in our spirituality and different methods, but let us adhere to the pronouncements of the law.
Ms. Darampo, you had not finished your explanation there on the sentencing.
Yes, I indicated that the last burglary matter that was prosecuted in the High Court, it was a burglary against a minor, and the person got up to 18 years imprisonment. Our Sexual Offences Act in the region is the act with the most far-reaching penalties compared to other jurisdictions where burglary against a minor you can get up to 15 years. In Dominica, it's up to 25 years. And also we have various offenses under the Act that the sentences are higher than all our sister jurisdictions. So the Sexual Offences Act, it's far-reaching, and even when we have the issue of discounts being given to an accused, you still have them getting very stiff sentences. And the sections don't make provision for penalties.
Yes.
It's custodial sentences.
Right. So we have gone past our time here tonight, a very interesting topic. And I want to again commend you all for being here tonight and taking time off and out. I mean, I say off because the senior state council, the acting sergeant, had to drive from a far distance to come to the studios tonight, and that demonstrates a level of commitment to the job. And I also want to commend the acting permanent secretary and the DPP. I will now invite you, starting first with Mr. The senior state attorney, with the closing remarks before we go to Ms. Darampo and then the acting permanent secretary.
What I wish to say in closing is, as was stated by the DPP and the acting permanent secretary, the moral law and the choices that individuals make as it relates to their moral persuasion or their religious belief still remains. It is up to you to practice your moral law as you wish. In the context of this case, we are dealing with man's law, and man's law has to be referenced in light of the Constitution, and the Constitution in this case makes provisions for persons to exercise their choices. It may not be the choice that you personally would exercise, but it has to be respected. And in final, the thought that the burglary ban has been lifted is inaccurate. This case sets out that in limited circumstances, as it relates to two consenting adults in private, the act of burglary has been decriminalized. The laws of burglary are still on the books to protect the rights of minors and adults who do not consent.
Thank you very much. As we go to Ms. Darampro?
It's not every time a prosecutor concurs, but I concur fully with what the learned acting Solicitor General has said. I would state further that I wish the public to read the case. It's available online. It's available on the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court site. Read the case. When you read the case, you'll fully understand what the court used to come to the particular judgment, and you will understand the fact that burglary has not been decriminalized, and also gross indecency has not been decriminalized. Educate yourself. Spend some time reading the case, and it will all make sense.
Yes, and thank you, ladies. I also too concur on what was just said, but to just say to the general public, let us be responsible in what we put out to others, what we disseminate in public. Let us be responsible in ensuring that what we say is the truth, and our headlines reflect the accuracy of the state of affairs, and that when we make representations, that these representations are accurate. I know that the state is in the interest of all its citizens. The state enacted the laws for burglary. These were challenged, and the state of affairs that stands now is that the law has been qualified. So that is what I wish to say.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies, for a very instructive, I want to say lecture or education here tonight. For me, I want to say that before this very specific ruling that has actually generated tremendous discourse within the public domain, our laws insofar as they relate to sexual offenses mirrored and amplify our Christian values, and of course prohibited burglary among both men and women, women and man, and man and man. That is what we have on the books as we speak. But of course, with the 5 rulings now collectively within the Caribbean, so you're going to have a situation where you have established precedents, and that's how our jurisprudence over the years have emerged. And as I've said, it's not a lifestyle that I subscribe to, but of course we live in a democratic society, and we may not like it, but the state has put on a fight in that regard, and we will continue to try to edify and educate the public, and to continue to embrace each other, and to say further that the notion that is a situation whereby people can openly go to the public and etc. and engage in such acts is not true. And the notion that the government has legalized burglary is not true. The notion that burglary has been in totality being decriminalized is not true. And the notion that charges can be brought under the sections that we referenced tonight is also false. So have a nice night, and thank you for listening, those of you in Dominica and overseas, and thank you for your calls. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. God bless you guys. You guys. Thank you.
Tune in to DBS Radio this Thursday at 8 p.m. for the 90-minute program hosted by the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures. This week's program will discuss the constitutionality of sections 14 and 16 of the Sexual Offences Act. The guests will discuss the recent judgment. The guests are Director of Public Prosecutions Shoma Darampro, Companies and Intellectual Properties Office Registrar Athlin Nesty, and Acting Solicitor General Vanika Sobers Joseph. Tune in this evening at 8 on National Broadcaster DBS Radio, the Ministry of National Security and Legal Affairs. Know your rights, know the law, know your ministry, know your procedures.